All right, we're
Put
on.
over to the left if you kind of stay at the podium.
But I wish we would have tested sound.
I can try to talk loud, I guess.
That might be helpful.
All right. Well, thanks for having me here. It sounds like you have an interesting project ahead of you. I hate it that it involves homework or whatever, but I guess that's what it is. I'm still learning English myself, so if I mess up while I give this little talk, don't hold it against me too much there.
Just hold up a red card.
Yeah, is that what you have? Okay. My name is John Ricks. My nickname is Woody. I got that nickname within a couple of weeks of when I started at the Sheriff's Department. And you get a nickname down there and it just kind of sticks with you. So I've had it a long time. When I met my wife and I was out with friends and from work. Those are always our friends, it seems like. And so my wife and all of her family call me Woody. And it's almost like I live two lives right now because people that knew me when I was little still call me John, but everyone else calls me Woody. So, and feel free to call me Woody. That's usually what I answer to most of the time. But I thanks River for asking me to come and talk to you folks today. I wanted to come and talk and tell you about myself. I guess you're doing a comparison type paper. So I'll tell you as much as I can about myself. It will not take me an hour, I can't imagine. I haven't really rehearsed anything, or, you know, I jotted down some notes that I wanted to kind of cover. Hopefully I'll be able to find them out in the parking lot here, as before I came in. But I just want to make sure you learn about who Woody is, I guess. I'm one of 3 candidates that's running for sheriff this year. And hopefully you guys all live in Tippecanoe County and are registered to vote. That's an important thing. Elections anymore are very important, and this election is very important. And I'll get into that a little bit later on, why it's so important, but it really is. I grew up, I was born and raised here in Tippecanoe County. I've lived my whole life here. I'm 48 years old. I was the youngest of 7 children. And my parents had 2 sets of kids, 2 groups of children, I would say. I had 2 brothers and a sister that all kind of grew up together. And then there was a long span of no children. And then me and my 2 brothers came along. So it was kind of interesting. When I grew up, you know, my adolescent days, it was just me and my 2 brothers. Everyone else was grown and out of the house. We lived on a small hobby farm, I would call it, in southern Tippecanoe County, down past McCutcheon, if you guys are familiar with that. We had about 16 or 17 acres. We raised cattle. We had a few head of cattle. We always had a couple pigs. We'd buy chickens 100 at a time, so we had chickens and eggs to collect, and we had a pony, we had a big yard to mow, we had a humongous garden that we kept. As you can imagine, I had chores, and a lot of chores. My parents, I describe it as they worked, well, my dad actually used to describe it. He'd say that they worked us kids like borrowed mules, if you know what that expression is like. And that's kind of how we were brought up. We were worked really hard. My parents apparently didn't know what any child labor laws were back then. But we were not abused or anything like that. I look back at my childhood, it was a very happy time. You know, I grew up, basically I was born in the 70s, so the 70s and the 80s were my time growing up. And it was a good time to be a kid, really. We had a lot of fun, but we did work hard. We heated our house with wood that we cut every year. We never ran a furnace. We never did. Our house, I don't think, had a furnace. I think it had electric baseboards, and those things never came on. We weren't self-sufficient. We weren't living off the grid like you see on some of the TV shows now, but we were very self-sufficient. We ate from our garden. Mom canned and froze things out of our garden, and we would eat green beans and corn, sweet corn and everything clear, you know, December, January, February. We ate good. As you can tell, I still eat good. This is a lot of years of donuts right here. You know, so, but my parents really tried to instill in me that you needed to be a good worker. And you guys are here working for a big company, and you guys know the importance of showing up and being here on time, and really doing a good job while you're here. And it's very important. My dad sat us down and actually told me, I can remember this lecture, when we became teenagers and were going out and getting our first jobs. He said if we didn't go and be on time and work hard and do the things we were supposed to do, it was the same as reaching into the back pocket of our boss, stealing his wallet, and taking money from him. That's what he told me, and it's stuck in my head all these years. And I guess as I grew up, those things that my parents pressed down into my head, you know, basically, stayed with me, thankfully. And it was natural to, when I got older, to just work hard at whatever job I had. If you do work hard, you'll see there's always a great reward. You know, it's great to be pleasing to your bosses, and you know, to be noticed in a good way and not a bad way. When you hear your name, you want it to be because you've done something good, not certainly because you're in trouble again or something like that. But I'm thankful for my parents. My parents, of course, they're older because they were older when I was born, and they both passed. But I still remember a lot of the things that they taught me and everything. I graduated from McCutcheon High School. Any Mavericks in here? Probably not. One? All right. If you've gone there recently, you probably saw me. I worked security there for 20 years now. Yeah. About that? I graduated from McCutcheon in 1988, and I tinkered around. I worked for an oil company here in town, Newton Oil Company, and about a year later is when I landed my first position at the Sheriff's Department. I was 19 years old, and you can imagine how much world knowledge I had at 19. If anybody has any kids that are that age, you can understand, you know. I started working as a jailer, was my first position at the Sheriff's Department, and this was at the old jail on 6th Street. If any of you are familiar where the jail is now on Duncan Road, maybe, no? You know, hopefully you've never visited us for any bad reasons, but we're down on Duncan Road. We used to be on 6th Street near the YWCA. That's the old jail. There's actually another jail before that, but that's the jail that I started at. And it was bars, catwalks, and it was a big eye-opener for a 19-year-old kid from the farm. You know what I mean? It really was. It's very interesting. I learned a lot of things. I got my nickname, and I was just floored by some of the things I saw and some of the things I heard. Obviously, it was very interesting and very educational. During this time, we were about to transfer over to the new jail. So I was a jailer at the old jail, and then we moved to the new jail, and I helped with that move. We got the inmates there, and we started using the what we currently call the Sheriff's Department building, and that's where we're at now. I was a jailer for just over a year, and an opening came up in dispatch, and I became a dispatcher. And I was a dispatcher for 3.5 years, almost 4 years, somewhere in there. And that was a great job too. Very, very educational. Anybody that wants to get into law enforcement, I would recommend getting a job like a jailer or a dispatcher, because you really do learn a lot, and it gets you kind of interacting with, you know, police officers as they come and go within the building. And it's as a dispatcher, I found that it's, you know, it's so much different than the jail. The jail, you dealt with people that were arrested, and they'd come in and you'd have to deal with them and their issues. And people that were staying with us a long time, you had to deal with those issues. As a dispatcher, you're dealing with problems when they first arrive on scene. You know, you got that person that's having the bad day, and they're calling 911 for help. And you're the first person they're talking to. And it can be very challenging at times, you know, to calm someone down, to get them the help there, and to do all that stuff. But it was a great learning experience. I was still a young man at that time. It was very helpful for me, I thought. I became a police officer then in 1994. I was 24 years old. I was just as happy as could be to be a police officer. I was a police officer, you know, we're deputy, since it's the Sheriff's Department, a little bit different than city police. We're police officers, but we're called sheriff's deputies. You got to kind of think of the Old West, you know, the Old West. you had the sheriff, and then you had his deputies. Same concept, that's how Indiana, each county in Indiana has a sheriff. And then the men and women that work under him are his or her deputies. So I became a sheriff's deputy in 1994. I worked patrol, obviously, primarily night shift patrol. After I'd been a deputy for 6 years, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant. And once I was sergeant, I continued to work night shift patrol, and then I was transferred into the detective division. I was the detective sergeant, which was very much a learning experience for me. 2 different jobs almost, being an investigator versus being someone out on patrol. And so it was a very good time. I did that for almost right around 4 years, and then I went back to patrol. And much more nighttime patrol, night shift, some day shift every now and then. By the time my kids got into high school, I had one child that was very athletic and did a lot of sports, so I finally put in for days and worked some days while he was doing that so I could make it to more sporting events. And then I was promoted to lieutenant in 2012. So back to nights I went, because I was back to the bottom of the rung of the ladder. So, and I remained on nights as a lieutenant until just a year ago I came back to days. So right now I'm a daytime patrol lieutenant in charge of one of our 2 daytime shifts. As for being a police officer as long as I have been, I still find it one of the most rewarding and satisfying jobs you can have. It is just, I look forward to going to work. I mean, we all have our days where it's like, oh, I gotta go to work, you know, but it is, for the most part, very satisfying and rewarding. You go out and you really do make a difference, you know. Sometimes you don't know what kind of difference you've made because of the, you know, the ripple effect, so to speak. But there's just so much that we do on a daily basis, you just never know. It's very satisfying. It's a job that I love. I love our people at the Sheriff's Department. I love what I do, and I just don't have any desire to quit anytime soon. But going back to the history of me, I guess, real quick, before we get into other issues. I met my first wife when I was a dispatcher, so it was 1992. She hates it when I call her my first wife, because we're going to be celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary here in a couple months. But that keeps her on her toes, right, if I call her that. So, kudos to her, I guess, for staying with me. You can kind of look down our roster of deputies, and you can see, you know, you can just go divorce, second wife, divorce, third wife, you know, single, you know, and because it's very hard to stay married to a police officer. We deal with a lot of stress. We deal with crazy shifts. We get called out. Our days off really aren't our days off because we're doing training, and we're doing so much, and then you try to throw a wife and raising kids in the mix, and it's very difficult. We have a very high divorce rate, so when we do have someone that stays married, it's kind of a big accomplishment. I would say that we have several people on our department, friends of mine, that have stayed married for long periods of time. Some of them, it takes their second wife maybe to stay married for a long period of time, but they do figure it out, and it's good because it's not the norm, but around in this area, we do find that we have some great success, and I think it's great. It's not easy, but nothing worthwhile is easy. So, but we have 3 children. Now, I am my wife's second husband, I'll say that. She didn't get it right the first time, but she's got it right the second time. When I met my wife, she had a son that was 18 months old, and I've raised that kid, basically. I was actually the one that potty trained him, I'm pretty sure. And that was challenging for me, obviously, but he's 27 now, so, and we have 2 other children, another son and then a daughter. And if you want to talk about a busy year in 2018, my kids have no consideration for this because we have this little campaign going on. It's a little stressful and I got a lot to do. But my daughter's getting married at the end of May. My other son's getting married at the end of July. And our oldest is having a baby in October. So 2018 is going to be quite a record year. 2019, it'll probably be pretty boring is what I'm thinking. I don't know. But 2018 is.
You'll need a vacation.
I'll need a vacation. Yes. It's going to be interesting. But that's my family. That's my upbringing. My work history, basically, I kind of laid that out a little bit. A jailer, dispatcher, sergeant, lieutenant, worked in detectives. I've been on our water rescue team for most of my career as a police officer. 20 plus years on that. I'm the longest member of that team. That's another reason why days off, we're doing training and things like that. I'm a hostage crisis negotiator. I'm the team leader for that team. We've been getting called out a lot more for that than in years past because we have a lot more, not a lot more, but we have more violence. We have more things that require our SWAT team. We don't call them SWAT, we call them SRT, but our SRT team to be activated. If they get activated, the negotiators come out. And that's just, we do that every time because there's usually some reason for negotiations. We've had some successful negotiations as of late. It's been quite good. They don't always go good, but they have been lately. I'm also a field training officer. That is basically the guy that takes the rookie and they ride together for a while. Usually we'll ride with a rookie for a 2-week stretch and then we turn him over to someone else. And we just kind of rotate him from one trainer to another. And that way rookie can see, how different officers, we don't skin the cat the same way. We all do it a little bit different. And it's good for them to see that and they can glean the things that are good that they like from one trainer and from this one and that and so on and so forth. Hopefully make them good officers. I think that's a very rewarding time being a trainer because you can see I love to talk. Yeah.